of you that are on Facebook, there is it's called Jalmer Candle Family Group.
Sure.
I don't remember exactly what the name of it is, I can look it up, but, it is a group of dads, grandparents, kids and grandkids and stuff, and so there's, some family history on that and pictures and things like that you might be interested in, so if you, let me know, I can have them send you an invitation and then you can join the group. And part of that was, there was recently a family candle reunion, and we weren't able to attend, but, part of what they did for that was, there was a black and white picture that looked similar to this, and this is the house that, Grandpa's mom lived in when she was growing up, and then one of her sisters in a rowboat on the little lake in front of it. They had a lot of water around them, so they went a lot of places by water. They actually came over here across the Columbia River to Astoria to get groceries and go to the dentist and go to the doctor and do things like that. There was a ferry that came across the river, so they had to catch that. They went to church by boat. They did a lot of things, so anyway, but one of Grandpa's cousins took the black and white picture and painted a bigger picture. I don't know how big it is, 18 by 20 or 4, or I don't know how big it is, but anyway, it's a full-size picture, and then they made prints of it and gave it to all the cousins. So I thought this was kind of neat, and you might like to see it. And then also on that website is, they did a history of, let's see, that would be your great-grandmother, yeah, on your mom's side, and how she was born in Finland and how she came to the US, and then Grandpa's grandparents, when they lived in, they were some of the, right across the river here, in Deep River and Rossburg and Maysel area is where your grandpa's grandpa homesteaded in the late 1800s, I think it was, and had his first farm there. And I was thinking when I was talking to Laura about her Poshmark, that, and then thinking about all the entrepreneurs in the family, and reading this history, it talked about how his Grandpa's grandma was well known for her ability to, let's see how it says it, to judge a stand of timber. And that her logs were stamped with Matilda candle as they floated down Deep River. And the article said most of the logs that went down the river bore her name. And then her daughter, who was, her son, who was Dave's grandpa, he and his wife had a store in Rossburg, one of the first stores, and he was the postmaster for the community too. Anyway, it's interesting, it's several pages, so I won't read the whole thing, but I thought I'd leave it here for you guys if you wanna look at that.
What years are we talking about?
This was, his great-grandma was born in 1850 in northern Finland, the southern part of southern Lapland, which is the north end of Finland. And then his grandpa, Jacob Jalmer, was born in 1886. And they, they worked there and had a farm and dairy farm and a lot of things there, lived in that area many, many years until they retired and then moved into Longview for the rest of their life. So anyway, it was interesting to me. I thought it might be interesting to some of you to read a little bit more about that history. And that leads us up to Dad's grandparents, Jalmer and Elsa Frederica Candle, were friends with my grandparents, Hilda and John Celine, and each of the couples had a daughter, Elsie, who then they were the same age, and each of the couples had a daughter, Elma, who's Auntie Elma that just passed away, and they were the same age, and so and the other Elma was Grandpa's mom. And so that Elsie and Elsie communicated by letter through the years, and Elma sent letters back and forth through the years. And anyway, we didn't know that until after we were married, I think, and your mom told me that. So the history goes back quite a ways. But then getting to our history, we met in 1973 in Hancock, Michigan at the church convention. We wrote letters to each other that summer until Dave came out west for fall services in Clatskanie, Oregon in August. After the services, he decided to come to Seattle. And my mom and dad, who lived in the University District and rented out rooms, they had a room in the downstairs basement that was unoccupied at that time, so they allowed Dave to stay there. And he started, one thing I was really impressed with is we were there, I rode back from fall services with him, and we were home there about 3 days, and within less than a week he had a job. He sat down right away with the phone book and started calling contractors and got a job doing sheetrocking and nailing and taping. In October we got engaged, and in February we bought a house for $14,000 in the Northgate area of Seattle, and Dad moved in. I drove by the, I know, 14,000. I don't remember how many square feet that house was, but
1780.
no, it wasn't that big, was it?
Oh, no, 7.
It was like 800 square feet or 900 square feet, something like that.
So you met
Yeah.
in the summer and then you got engaged that October?
Right. And married. And married in April. We would have gotten married in February, but the church wasn't finished, so we had to wait. That was Dad's idea. And Dad wanted to get married in February and then go back to Michigan, and my dad said, let's have this guy buy a house. Maybe he'll stay here. So he had worked very hard to help us find a house, and we did. The house needed a lot of work, and Dad got straight to work with some help from my family, and they put on a new roof, including extending the rafters out. The houses after the war were built with no rafters, or,
No overhangs or
no overhangs, yeah. And then they did the siding, the windows, insulated and painted everything, so it was ready for me to move in after the wedding. We lived there for 2 years, and during that time we brought Cindy home from the hospital, and we sold it after 2 years for $27,000, and we bought a house in Kenmore. It also needed a lot of work. There's a pattern here. And there we finished the basement, added a sauna, remodeled the kitchen and the family room, and Mike was born in August of '76, during the time we were living there. And in October of '76, Grandma and Grandpa Impola, along with Uncles Jim, Aunts Sarah, Sharon, and Carol, moved out west. They lived with us for a month while they found a house. And the girls were in high school, and Jim went to work for a body shop in Linwood and worked there for many years. Grandpa and Grandma Impola lived in Linwood for 7 years and then moved back to Minnesota. They had moved from Michigan to Washington, and they moved to Minnesota, and that's where they lived the rest of their years. We moved again in April of '77, this time to Edmonds, and we lived there 1 year, and then in '78 we bought a split entry house. It was a new house on Meridian Avenue for $56,000, and that was in April of '78, about 6 weeks before Greg was born. There we finished the basement, put in another sauna, and put in the yard. In 1979, we started Impola Construction Incorporated as a remodeling business. We had many Saturday morning dates with the kids along to Dunn Lumber, Standard Brands, and Pay and Pack, all construction supply stores. Picking out paint, tile. That was the best we could do with 3 little kids.
Wow.
Paint, tile, wallpaper, carpet, and fixtures. We had a shared goal and lots of energy, so they were busy but fun years, and with each house we gained a little more equity to help us reach our goal. Our hope was to find some acreage to build our dream house, and in 1982 we sold the house in Meridian. We had bought it for $56,000, we sold it for $100,000, and moved into a rental in Edmonds while we looked for land. We found the land in Clearview, originally 4.5 acres for $27,000, and after moving a 14 by 70 trailer, which we paid 14% interest on, because that was the interest rates at that time, we moved it onto the land, and we moved into it in July of 1982. Dad built his shop and then we started on the house. Dad insisted that we not take more than $30,000 mortgage. So in addition to doing most of the work himself, we delayed finishing some things like the wainscoting in the family room, the brick on the front, dining room chandelier, and things that we could live without until we could afford them and just gradually put them in. It was a wise decision to keep the mortgage low as he was just beginning to build houses rather than just doing remodeling and sheetrock work. So that was the start of the building time. The doors opened for him to build his first house when mortgage interest rates were around 12 to 14%. There was big slump in the market, but God provided good realtors who were able to find creative ways to finance, and that helped us to find buyers. Dad was able to buy a dump truck, a bulldozer, and backhoe for the business, and spent many pleasurable hours in the shop working on them. He loved getting his hands in diesel.
I love the smell of it.
Yeah. God blessed the building business, and in 1991, when we needed more room, I was expecting Julie at that time, we added 2 more bedrooms. We expanded the laundry room and added an office and a garage, and bought another 1.5 acres next door. The kids had lots of room to roam and use their imaginations. Dad made it fun for them by supplying junker cars for them to drive around the fields. We also had chickens, a few beef cattle, and a large garden. We lived in the Clearview area for 16 years. And in 1998, we moved to Battleground. During our 4 years there, Mike and Annette, Greg and Catherine, and Sherry Nick all married, and our first grandson was born. Then in 2002, we moved back north, and in 2003, Mike found us a house that needed remodeling in the Silver Lake area of Everett, and we lived there for 18 years. During our time there, Tim and Cynthia and Matt and Elizabeth got married, and also 16 more grandchildren were born. During those wonderful years. And then we moved to Marysville in 2021, and now are blessed with our first great-granddaughter. We're so thankful to God for all of his care and guidance through the years and his bountiful blessings, especially for our wonderful family and for each other. So, that's a little bit of our history.
Any questions? Probably shouldn't say that if you're Palm Park.
Yeah, I got a question. So you came to the convention and you was in Michigan or New Hampshire, or where was the convention?
Michigan.
In Michigan, so you kinda went out to Dad's hometown, right? 'Cause
Right.
he's in Michigan, you met Mom. Were you already planning to go to the fall services in Gladskanai, or was meeting Mom?
I used to go to
So
them.
you go, okay, so you're gonna go already, and then you met Mom, then you decided to go up to Seattle from there, cause that's a little further on, right?
Right.
And so was Mom in that decision at all, or was you?
We were writing letters back and forth. And
Okay, yeah, cause you were writing.
I didn't get
Okay,
a letter in time, I got a lot of shit from her.
okay.
So I held off and said, no, I don't need a letter. They were really upset with me. Why didn't you contact me?
Well, I was in North Dakota for part of that summer, and so we've been writing letters back and forth. And actually, during that time, I also went to the Bible camp in Minnesota, and Dad came down, and we saw each other again then.
Okay.
And then we kept writing letters as I went back. Oh, that's right. I went west, and I think that's how the letter thing didn't get to him in time or something. I don't know. And so he felt like I hadn't written back quickly enough, so he figured he wasn't going to tell me that he was actually going to come to fall services. So I didn't find out until he was in Gladskanai, and then he decided he better call and let me know. Let me know that he was there. And I was home with a ride to fall services if I wanted it with my grandparents, and I was like, well, do I go or don't I go? I don't know, should I? And then he called, made the decision. So yeah, then after fall services, then we talked, and he decided to come to Seattle. And
Okay. So Mom was playing hard to get a little bit, huh? Over there. Yeah.
Dad was
I
too.
ran through that ringer myself.
That's right.
So when did the famous walking Mom up to the front row with Linda in tow story happen? Was that when you met in Michigan?
In Hancock,
Or-
yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Convention, yeah.
Yeah, Marilyn had taken Linda and I to convention, and so Linda and I were kind of wandering around the youth group there, and Dave came up. I had seen him a little bit earlier in the day when he stopped to say hello to some girls I was with. And anyway, he came up and started talking to me, and then finally asked if I wanted to sit with him, and I was like, well, what do I do with my sister? So I just said something to that effect, and he thought that was pretty funny.
No, she said that, huh?
But Linda took a look at what was happening, and she said, "I'm out of here. I'll go find somebody else."
So I think it took some time.
But,
She didn't care, in fact, I think you came with her.
well, did she come at first, and then she took off, or what? I can't
I
remember.
don't know.
Anyway. Yeah.
Dad, do you wanna add anything here? Were you nervous? Were you
I'm always
confident? Were you optimistic? Some pretty tight spots here. What are your?
But no, I'm not nervous.
He's always been nervous. He said he's always been nervous.
Say it again, Tim.
Yeah.
That's the
Were you
question
nervous,
again.
or were you excited?
Oh, I just answer it.
You said you went home and told your mom you thought you met the lady you might marry or something, or girl you might marry or something, didn't you? That convention? And I didn't meet his
Oh,
parents
yeah.
until, we got married in April, but his mom had just started a new job, and so they weren't able to come to the wedding, and so I hadn't met them yet. And Paul, his twin, was working in Portland, so he came up and he was the best man, but that was the only member of the family that I met until after we were married.
I've never noticed that in wedding pictures that grandpa, grandma. and
Yeah.
grandpa,
Yeah.
But none of his other siblings were able to make it either?
No, well, they were all pretty much, Lola had just gotten married, cause Lola and Victor got married in October. And then, Elaine and Brian got married in August. That was probably part of the reason Grandpa and Grandma couldn't come either, cause two girls' weddings was expensive too, and it was hard to afford it, but anyway, and then the little girls were pretty little yet. They were still pretty young, so
How old were you when you got married?
I was 20.
So you started dating at 19?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
You got married at 20.
Yeah, I got married 6 weeks after my 20th birthday, which seems young now, but
And had me the day before her 21st birthday.
yeah, exactly.
This is the first time I remember hearing about you having a house in Kenmore. I just did not remember that at all.
Yeah, we were only there a year.
Okay.
I don't remember how we heard about that house. We started looking, we had everything pretty well done on the house we were in, and so we must have seen the ad or something somewhere for this.
Kenmore.
Yeah, in Kenmore. So we went out and looked at it, and the lady that owned it was in the middle of a divorce, and she just wanted to get rid of it, and the husband had started remodeling different projects and stuff, so kind of perfect project for us to get involved in, so, yeah.
And if no one else is gonna ask,
Go ahead.
did you always know that you wanted like land with that dream property? And is that why you did so many flips, or did you figure that out from living in like a smaller place at the beginning?
I think we both really wanted that. We wanted to, and it was kind of weird for me because I remember when we moved out to Clearview and we'd lived there a little while. I remember driving into Seattle to go to my mom and dad's and looking at the houses and thinking, man, these houses are so close together. And then I realized that's what I grew up with. It shouldn't be strange to me. But yeah, we both just kind of felt like we wanted to raise our kids on a little bit of property. My mom had always felt bad that, she raised 4 sons and they didn't have any, they had a little she always had a postage stamp yard for them to play in, so would have liked to have a little bit of land.
Yeah, thank you for pursuing that dream. Growing up on land was a real blessing.
Yeah.
Sin was sharing just this last weekend actually with our small group, kind of like bits of her life story with pictures of the property they grew up on, and that you're talking about, and 1 or 2 of the people watching were like, wow, that's amazing. Like, I think they used the word kind of a dream childhood or something like that.
It was really neat from the aspect that, the kids used their imaginations. They got out, Matt talks about building forts out in the trees, and they got to try a lot of different things, and Dave was really good at finding fun things. I mean, we always marveled at the neighbor kids. They'd come over and Dave would have our kids out working on some kind of project, and they'd say, can we help? Can we help? Rather than, oh, when are you gonna be done so we can play? But they wanted to get out there and help too, and so, yeah, it was good.
Yeah, I forgot how much we did with the neighbor kids until whoever was just sending those photos around, like Matt's there with his fish and Kevin's with you, the neighbor. And then there's that old car car and I see Tiffany in there or
Yeah.
stuff, and it's like,
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for pursuing that dream of the property, and that was such an incredible, idyllic, childhood to grow up with, or that, I just think about how Cynthia or Mike's formative years or childhood years versus Eric or Julie, you know, just how much for me a space or an atmosphere, a house, a property, like it really informs kind of how you see the world. So for myself, the first full 13 years, I think we moved when I was 14 to Battleground, but
Yeah.
those first 13 on that 6 acres and just having the freedom to roam around and own a car at 9 years old and
Right.
you know, cruise around the field, you know,
Right.
have cows and chickens and the whole deal. It was just so amazing, and then it was so distinct to go to Battleground and live in a cul-de-sac and kind of do the
Very
suburb
different. Yeah.
life, and so yeah,
Yeah.
just two different worlds. So I definitely preferred the first one. So
I know. I wish we could have stayed there till Julie and Eric were older too, but it was fun too because we had a lot of the cousins close by and you know, Quest dads and Stan and Shirley's kids and stuff. So we had kids over a lot. You know, they were always welcome at our house, and we always had something going on for them to do, and confirmation picnics and Sunday school picnics and things like that.
You, Mike, you had that, in confirmation, had a big swimming pool,
oh yeah,
you're running across and you dive right into it.
I think they threw me in, but,
I mean, so down.
yeah.
I remember I stayed at your house, slept on the floor in a sleeping bag at some point as a teenager. No comprehension at all that you'd be my future in-laws.
I know. I remember because you and Catherine and Nick, I think, all came with some of the Workler kids
Yeah.
and Candle kids, and there's just a whole bunch of you. No, at our house in
Well,
Clearview.
they came to your house too, because,
Yeah, we came to your house too. That's
you
right.
know, by the front door, and you're trying to sneak in. Someone didn't know.
Yeah, at one time, yeah, we went down and I don't remember what happened, if we didn't have a reservation to stay someplace or, but anyway, we saw your mom and dad and they just said, oh, come to our house. So we went and stayed at your house, and little did we know.
Sherry, you got something about to talk to about Missy, you and Missy. Is she there?
Yeah, she's there.
Do you have anything to share with you and Missy?
Anything to share with me? Like about Clearview or what specifically?
Yeah, driving cars there?
Yeah, I mean, it was fantastic growing up on property, I loved it, yeah. Pretending like I was driving driveway to driveway back and forth 100 times, stop at the fence, pretend like it's a stoplight, you know. I mean, it was, that was great, and it was such a, like Mom said, it was such a busy, like, loud household that then when I went to your Everett house and Julie and Eric were the only ones there, I thought, well, this is kind of boring. It's all quiet here. Isn't this just strange? You know, but to them, they're like, no, this is just our life. But ours was so different, I feel like. So, yeah, I loved the busyness of it. And I felt like, yeah, everyone wanted to be at our house, you know. It's a happening place.
Yeah, kids loved it. We loved having the kids there.
Sherry would always beat me off the school bus and get the Honda 100 and I had to settle for my 80. But
She saved my bacon with that. One day I was home alone and the cows got out, and I was trying to get that stupid cow to head for the barn instead of the road, and I could not get that thing to turn around. She jumped on the 80 and she was buzzing past it and turned right around and went back.
Mom's out there shaking the grain bowl. Shake, but I got a better way.
Exactly.
I know.
Yeah, exactly. And then there's a story when I went to get my hair done, and Mike was working already. You were what, 14, 15, and you were working up at the hardware store. Anyway, and so it must have been Greg and Matthias and Missy and I don't know how many kids at our house, and the cows got out. We hadn't had them very long, and we had a whole bunch of kids there, and and I come home to find out that the cows had gotten out, and there were kids flying all over the neighborhood trying to get them back in. one of the kids jumped on a bike and went racing up to the hardware store trying to get Mike to come help, and
I know, it's crazy now when I look back and I drive that distance, it's like, wow, some little kid jumped on a bike and drove, man, this is a long
Right,
ride.
right.
And
I know,
rode all the way there and I rode back and, yeah.
yeah.
anyway, I just thought, I got home and I thought, oh, people think we're absolutely nuts with all these kids around here and all this chaos. But it paid off, cause when Kevin Beach came and I babysat him one day for Chris, and, he was just such an active kid, he was 3, and I didn't dare let him outside because I didn't know where he'd end up. But finally, after all day of keeping him next to me, the kids were playing behind the fence in a gravel pile. I thought, well, maybe he'll stay there. So I brought him out there and told the kids, now keep an eye on him. Don't let him go anywhere and stuff. And I probably no more than walked in the house and he was gone because I wasn't there very long. I went back out to look for him and we couldn't find him. So I'm telling kids, you go look in the woods. You go over to so-and-so's and see if he's there. You go look in the house, see if he's there. And we're all running around the yard looking for Kevin, and I see this strange van come driving up the driveway, and I thought, oh, who's this? I don't need company. Then I looked again, and there was a little kid sitting on the lady's lap, and it was Kevin, and I went to the van, and she said, well, I knew you had a lot of kids, so I thought I'd try here first.
He was up at the highway with his corn popper walking.
He was. He pushed a little
That little
corn
thing he
popper.
pushed with pop, 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 pop.
And he had made it all the way to Highway 9. It was just a nightmare. I know.
That's a long way and a big hill and.
Exactly. And anybody could have picked him up and had ill intentions or good intentions, but had no idea to take him anywhere. But fortunately, God protected him and me. And Chris came back and I said, oh, I hate to tell you, Chris, but this is what happened. And she said, finally somebody understands what I go through with Kevin.
You're a runner.
Exactly.
Where's Emily? Remember, I was teaching you earlier what throw somebody under the bus means, that's what Grandma did there. She said, yeah, your mother told the kids to watch it. Throwing kids in the
What was that, Mike?
Oh, I was telling Emily, explaining earlier, remember we were talking about throwing under the bus?
Uh-huh.
And so I was just saying, you were demonstrating that when you said, I put them out there and I told the kids to watch it.
Right.
Throwing kids under the bus.
You mentioned us using our imagination. I have a lot of memories. Unfortunately, I really only played outside till I was 10 or 12, and then I became such a bookworm that I hardly ever went outside, which I now regret. But up until age 10 or 12, I played outside with my siblings, and so some of the things I remember were just wandering into the backwoods, finding the vine maples, which had these long bouncy branches, and so we'd just like climb up to the top and bounce up and down. It was super fun. We had like this pasture where the grass would go really high, and so Mike would mow like just a path through the pasture, and then he'd haul us on the lawnmower trailer, and they were called Yogi Bear tours. And the grass was so high that we couldn't really see much, or we pretended we couldn't see much. That was a lot of fun. And we, in the spring, especially when it was raining a lot, or the swamp was still really wet, we had so much fun having mud ball fights. So the mud was like really soft and squishy, and you could almost make like a mud ball with it. And so we would literally roll in the mud, throw mud at each other, and we'd come home just like covered.
Just covered. Oh my
Grandma
goodness,
would,
yes.
would hose us down because we were so
They couldn't cover the house. They were way too muddy.
right, pretty much pressure washing that. I remember riding my bike down the hill, down 176 hill, and again, it was like a deep ditch, but with really deep grass, so we dare each other to like drive into the ditch and then just flop over into the deep grass, but you didn't really get hurt because it was, so deep and thick.
The girls would flop over, and for some reason myself and Greg and Matthias, right before the ditch, we'd stick our foot in between the tire and the front fork. And then just stop the front tire and we'd go head over heels and fight. But yeah, somehow we never Yeah, in the barn, on the front of the barn. Yeah. We jump out of the loft in the shop, yeah, we jump out of the loft in the shop
Yeah.
onto a
in the
little
shop,
disc and
yeah.
swing, and then there was a regular swing in front of the shop.
Oh, that's right, I forgot about that.
That was a little more dangerous if somebody walked out the door, or one time I was swinging super high and then the fence hadn't got latched and it swung open,
Oh, no.
so I swung against that.
Out.
I remember laying in here, but see every one of my bones. My back hurts.
We had that big sand box, David poured, like a cement box and then filled it with sand and then they put the swing set in the middle of it, so the kids played out there, but they dug tunnels and holes and all kinds of stuff. Had all kinds of little excavators and dump trucks and everything, they spent hours and hours out there.
One of us would be the building inspector and come inspect the pad and stuff that somebody else had made, make sure it was sturdy.
Yeah, lots of memories.
Yeah, I appreciate your variety of interests for both of you and just how we were the beneficiaries of that, just thinking about that property and all the blueberry plants that planted and all the raspberries, and even the neighbors were beneficiaries.
Alright.
Come home and they would be fistful in the blueberries.
These are good.
But yeah, just simple things like that. I just love fresh fruit, you know, and it's like I see that stem back to just that, you know, cultivating those plants. There wasn't a ton of them, but that was just such a luxury that
Yeah.
not many people get to experience just kind of an endless supply of blueberries all summer long.
Yeah,
But just the cows and learning how to build fences with Dad was amazing, and how to used to come along and pull the barbed wire, and just even amidst that, you allowed us to make baseball fields and, you know, racetracks and all that. It wasn't just one thing that we couldn't touch, you know, but you gave us free rein with your tools. It seemed like that was a overreaction from your dad a little bit, that you
Yeah,
could touch the tools, so you gave us, we got to fully have free rein over any tool, any car, so that was pretty fun.
Oh, you got a whipping for touching the tools.
Yeah. So that was
That's
pretty
why
neat.
my kids, whatever, I have all tools you want.
Yeah.
same thing with driving, you never got to drive when you were young, so you let the kids drive as soon as they were able to reach the gas.
58 Rambler.
Yeah,
I got another one here, Mom said not to bring it up. The same Kevin, he was helping me do things around the house, and so let's go, we can have hamburgers. Stop McDonald's about a quarter, but that's a little less than a quarter mile. And,
thought he'd take him up there as a treat for all his help.
yeah, so I have a,
McDonald's.
so he was just kind of moping around, come on, you have to eat your hamburger. And I said, well, considering the quality of this food, I don't really care for this.
That's about all, I think that's about all I can eat or
Yeah,
something like
no,
that. It
yeah.
was just considering the quality of
You
the
said
food.
inferior, it was such a big word term.
Maybe that's what it was.
Considering the inferior quality of the beef, I think that's all I can eat.
Yeah, Dad thought he was doing such a favor, and such a treat for him.
How old do you think he was?
How old is he then?
Well, at the same time, you
10,
have Toby here.
10, 12, 10 probably. I don't know.
Toby,
He was just a, quite the character one.
Toby.
Yeah, we had the dog Toby too, and that was just, I felt like that was a blessing from the Lord, considering how many dogs we went through that were not so good, but for some reason, someone had trained Toby really well and brought him to the pound, and Dave took the kids and went to the pound to pick a dog and brought him home. And he was trained and he was happy outside, and he just barked when somebody came into the yard, and he was just a perfect dog for the situation, because it was something that I knew that if he was barking, somebody was around, which helped me keep track of things, and yet he was a good companion for the kids and a good dog.
How many years did we end up having Toby?
Probably around 10, 8, 10.
You know, steering the wheel.
Oh yeah. Toby was so good with everybody, and he just wasn't vicious at all, but there were ladies that walked by our yard, and he decided to play a game with them, and he started growling at them or barking at them, and they were scared of him. And so one day I was in the kitchen and they came to the door and the lady was so red, she was just furious, and she was, your dog is coming after us and we're trying to walk up the street. And I said, thank you for coming, I appreciate you letting me know, because I don't want him doing that. So just, if he's out there, I will try to make sure that he's contained during the time that you go by, but if he's out there, just let me know. So they came to the door a couple weeks later and said, he's actually up the hill and he's waiting for us. So I said, oh, okay. And I had a dish towel in my hand and I walked up to the hill and he's hiding in the bushes. And he thinks that the lady's coming up the hill, so as soon as he hears the footsteps, he comes racing out there. And I yelled at him when I walked at him, the dishcloth, and his tail was between his legs, and he was just so humble going back to the thing like a little kid getting caught. It was just hilarious. And after they saw that, they realized he was harmless, and they didn't That was funny.
You mentioned up the hill, we did a lot of sledding on that hill. Seems like
Yeah.
a lot more snow back then, but, yeah, we did a lot of sledding. We had
Yeah.
the penguin patrol of all the kids out with their cars that trying to get up the hill and they'd slide in the ditch. And we just all come sliding over there, and with like 10 or 12 kids, you could just like push the car out, get it back on the road, and hop up the hill. And, yeah, that was a lot of fun.
That one year it snowed like the day after Christmas and stayed until the New Year's Eve. And that whole week it was like, I don't know how many inches of snow. It was a good amount of snow, but they sledded that whole week on that hill.
Must have been earlier on, I only remember you putting legal road signs up.
Oh, yeah.
Close.
We don't do that too. We put up big jumps and the cars, we'd go wrestle some of Dad's old construction signs, but road closed signs. We ourselves.
This is a neighborhood road. We're just kids are taking it over.
I remember one year it was especially bad, like every car that went up would not make it and they would slide in the ditch, but then we'd be right there and we'd push them out and kind of push them up the hill. So the next car that would come around the corner sometime later would be like, oh, there's no car, it looks good, I can make it up. And we'd be like, no, don't try. And then sure enough, they'd slide in the ditch. But this one guy, this old car, I don't know what kind it was, he made it almost all the way to the top. And he just, the last little bit, he was just staying in the gas, just like spinning, and his car was smoking, and he had his window down. I remember we were just kind of walking alongside, and finally was, mister, your car is smoking. And he might have been smoking too, because I remember him just, far out, man. He just stayed in the gas, and that's really I made it. Far out, man.
Was it a sheet of fiberglass, Mike? Remember that one year we had a sledding party and Dad had like, I thought it was fiberglass.
That way,
4x8 sheet.
grandma can sell it.
Yeah.
And like 10 people could pile on and you just get
Yeah, it had a lot of inventions for fun. Some worked, some didn't.
Right.
Apparently you cannot wire a tug of war rope back together.
But
You can't haywire a tug of rope back together. It's about killed 4 small kids. Had like Bruce Lee at the front with little kids behind, and that rope snapped. Dad's like, oh, I was wondering if that wire would hold.
Yeah, I remember that.
And then you guys put up with a lot of amateur fireworks shows for years. You guys would sit out there and I'd be all excited to show
It wasn't even for-
one bee, like a smoke bomb. Grand finale was 3 bees. You put the bees. You would sit patiently through the half-hour show.
And then the year that Mike told Dad, I'm just gonna set off a few fireworks, okay, Dad?
Well, I had to get it down to a few
20
to get
minutes later.
permission. We had a youth gathering with, I don't know how many hundred kids there. I really wanted to do fireworks.
300 kids.
I already had them all set. They had to be dug into the ground. They were big ones. And buried or whatever, these tubes, and
I didn't
trying to
even
get
know
that. Hey, Dad, can I do some fireworks? No, I'm gonna do this. So finally I had it down. What if we just do a few fireworks? I don't care, whatever. Yeah.
You had guys out there running all over the yard lighting fireworks.
Because they light them and then
Miracle
somebody else
that
had to
nobody
drop
else-
them in, and somewhere we lost track of which tubes had been lit, which hadn't, so they'd go to the next one, boom, like, whoa! Everything survived.
Oh, yes.
Did you say that, like,
scared, but he was scared after that, but he was one of the loaders.
Stick his head from his door.
Gonna stick your arrow, is this one I'm loading?
Yeah.
Sherry, how about the gas tanks? You can
Sherry,
try.
the gas tank?
Which,
You got a gas
it's not ringing a
tank,
bell, what are you talking about?
and then you
When you run out of gas, remember what'd you do then?
Oh,
When I ran out of gas on the road?
The lawnmower gas.
oh.
Oh, Bone Drive, that one?
Alright,
Did you got one tank of gas to ride?
Lawn-
when it ran
lawnmower
out
tank,
and you
yeah.
turned it
Yeah.
down?
Oh,
It's wired.
Oh.
I think that was the car that didn't have a starter, so you,
I mean, one of those, the brown car that you got from the auction, I stalled in the middle of the road. And then I running in and told Mom, it's still in the middle of the road, I don't know what to do. But I don't remember the gas.
well, Dad had a idea that if he put a lawnmower gas tank on there, it was a limited amount of gas, so then he'd let each kid drive until they ran out of gas, and then the next kid had to fill it up, and then they could drive till it ran out of gas. That way the turns were taken care of and nobody had to argue.
Okay.
That was smart. Smart idea. So, yeah, 50 years brings lots of blessings when I look around here, and thank God for each one of you, and see the wisdom of God in the way He's planned family and just to raise kids with parents who love them and care for them, nurture them, and teach them as the ways of the Lord, and blessing that brings. It's sure comfort to Dad and I as we get older to know all of you are around us and supporting us and encouraging us too. We hope we can encourage you, and you can encourage us too. So.
Do you have a few spiritual principles or nuggets as far as your marriage over 50 years during the highs and lows and ups and downs and all that beyond basically beyond the cliche things that
Yeah.
you could say, but just for you and your marriage uniquely, like that has been a little.
I think for us, growing up in a church that has taught so much about forgiveness and the forgiveness of sins, and encouraged us to confess our sins to one another, and to encourage each other with the forgiveness that Jesus has provided through His work on the cross. We grew up hearing that often, and I'm so thankful for that, because we've had some very tough times, and if we didn't have that forgiveness for each other and that ability to ask one another and forgive each other and start afresh and anew, we probably would not be married. There are times that if we hadn't had that faith and that help from the Lord and that principle of forgiveness for one another, I don't think we would have stayed together, and I'm so thankful that we have, because now we can, be together as a family and not have to worry about, well, is Dad gonna be there, is Mom gonna be there, is we this side or that side or anything else. We can be united as one family, and we're really thankful for that, and God has blessed as we've used that principle and just worked through problems and issues and shown to ask God for love for one another again. Sometimes we've had times, I remember another lady telling me, I have to ask God sometimes to give me love back for my husband, because there are hard times, and I've had to do that, and I'm sure Dad's had to do that for me sometimes, to ask the Lord to give me a loving heart towards my spouse, so that I can show him God's heart towards him, and so now we are bearing the fruits of that blessing, and
Fruits of my labor.
fruits of God's blessing and encouragement to us to stay together and be able to care for one another, and very thankful for that. So that would be one of the big ones. and just asking the Lord for wisdom. I think that's one that I grew up with, my mom, hearing my mom mention that many times, asking, James, as part of our Bible study tonight too, that Solomon asked for wisdom, and I remember Mom talking about the verse in James that, the Bible says that ask, if you need wisdom, to ask the Lord who gives abundantly, and that He will give it to you. And I've had many times that I've had to stop and say, I don't know what to do in this situation. I don't know how to go ahead or what to do, and ask God for wisdom, and He's given it. Sometimes it's hard to tell, well, did He give me wisdom or didn't He? Because He doesn't write it in lights. But I've many times had things, especially during some of the really tough years, where I've gone to bed at night just praying and asking, Lord, I don't know what to do. Or feeling like my prayers weren't getting through, and waking up during the night, or especially in the morning, and something will come to mind that just is totally different way of perspective of looking at a problem or an idea for a solution, and I just feel that that's from God, and as I've tried to follow that and do those things, God has blessed, and He's given. So I just have seen His faithfulness so many times, and I know Dad has too, giving us strength for each day and being with us no matter what.
Yeah, I'd like to mention, when I was younger, I had a lot more zeal and happiness and whatever. And I feel bad for a lot of times it seemed to be kind of cold-hearted. But anyway, I can't necessarily blame it on my Parkinson's, but it's good to be aware of it. Pray for me on that. Although it's been really good. God has been good to me.
Yeah, God has been good in that.
Take whatever comes.
Yeah, Dad's
Just
had a
trust
very,
in Him.
very good attitude through all this Parkinson's stuff, and has been willing to accept it as, God's will for him for this time, and
That's right.
rely on Him for strength each day.
I'm finding myself to be closer to God than further away.
Mm-hmm.
That's a key thing.
Yeah.
Can you say more about that? Dad?
Oh, about what?
You just said, I find myself to be closer to God. I want to make sure I got the words right. Then further away, is that what you said?
Yeah.
Through the Parkinson's.
Right.
Yeah. What can you explain that to anybody who might be interested? What does that mean?
How do you feel closer to God?
I don't know. I have to think on that.
Okay, that's right.
I guess just His warmth and His lovingness and looking ahead, through Him looking ahead.
Yeah.
I think, didn't you tell me you feel like you've had a renewed love for reading the Word and stuff too,
Yeah, it's unbelievable.
with the
Yeah.
Parkinson?
I used to never read the Word very, very seldom. No, and I used to, romance novels used to be probably a lot of us go through things like that. But anyway, yeah, it's like I've been all born again. Just by,
Yeah, God uses all of our situations for different things now. When Dad's had more time, hasn't been able to do, projects and things like that, he's had more time to just sit and read, and that's been a blessing. I think that's part of why he feels closer to God too, because when we get into His Word, He will open it to us and show us more and more of Himself, and that's really a blessing.
Yeah, I appreciate, I remember the Saturday night, get showered up and stuff, and then we'd sing and be together as family and read the Word, and then Sunday morning, every Sunday morning,
You guys wanna trade spots?
getting
in
out
that
the door
situation?
to, getting out the door to church, but,
Uh-huh.
yeah, but
Go over here,
anybody
too.
else, or you wanna keep going on, or
Well, if anybody's got questions, that's fine.
anything else?
Did you guys have any, older, your parents or older parents that you, would go to for marriage advice? Or that would,
All the way over.
that y'all would help seek counsel, or was it more individual?
We did, we were blessed to, my parents were close, of course his parents weren't as close by, but, although his mom once in a while would say things that, keep going, all the way over, it's shade over there. But also through the church, there were several older couples, the pastor especially and his wife and a couple of other older couples who really, we met with them a few times when we were struggling and things and asked for advice and prayer and stuff, and that was really helpful. It was really nice to, and just, they didn't always have a lot to say, but we knew that they were there for us, we knew that they were praying for us, and that was just, really helpful. They were good about, providing support in just real subtle ways but talking to us, and sometimes they come to us and say, hey, you know, maybe you should try this, or maybe you should do that, and we really appreciated that. So, yeah. And even now it's a blessing because, the guys from the church come and help take Dad walking every Tuesday morning, and they go for coffee, and it's been neat for all of them because they're all retired now, and it's fun to have the time together, but it is a real support to us too, and just an encouragement to us to have that, and the ladies in the Bible study are real good for support for me and stuff, so yeah, it is, it's a good church family.
Does that organ work now?
Yeah, keep it,
Oh, it's a favorite.
yeah, we can sing some song.
Yeah, it's a favorite song.
I don't know if we got music for it or not, we can try. I mean, I could still
Anything
play
else?
it.
Mhm. Mhm.
I guess I could play without music, but.
Yeah, in fact, it's, Esther's favorite song, what
No.
was that again?
Name of the rest?
Gave it a rest, we sang
Oh,
about
yeah.
10 times into the phone, when is Lydia get through already?
Oh, don't be that way.
Kitty,
No,
Kitty.
Mike recorded them singing one night and
Oh.
sent it to us, and that was really, really nice.
You can do the fourth
His
thing.
favorite song.
Heidi, is this recording you wanna?
It is,